but I'm looking down this little camera and praying that you can see me, and I'm imagining you. So I pray you're doing well. Today is Wednesday, June the 10th. And it's a good day. Very busy day, so I apologize for being late in posting today. You know, for the last few days I've talked about the Ten Commandments, and I'm not going to repeat all of that, except, I've talked about the first four. You shall have no other gods before me. You shan't have any idols or graven images. And then we talked about honor the name of the Lord. And then yesterday I talked about the Sabbath. And after I stopped, I thought, wow, that was cute, because I didn't even mention whether the Sabbath starts on Friday or it ends on Saturday or what. I know some people are really hung up on, is it Saturday, is it Sunday? And I don't believe that we're living under that kind of a law. I believe, though, that the exhortation to take time and to take a day is something that would be great for all of us. And I don't want to repeat yesterday, but it did strike me as funny that one of the big elements of controversy was something I didn't even touch on. But anyway, today I want to talk about the fifth commandment, and it says, the fifth commandment, Exodus 20 verse 12, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So I want to just touch base on what you'll think's unrelated. I want to talk to you about the coronavirus. Okay, I'm not going to get into it at length because it's all been burnt over and everybody's got opinions, and I do pray for the governor. I pray for those that are in authority, because no matter what they do, somebody's going to be upset. They used to say that if I'm upsetting equally the people on this side, on that side, I'm probably right in the middle where I need to be. But I don't think you can please all of the people all of the time. But, the governor's under pressure to get the economy going, get people back to work. But at the same time, it was of concern to me to see that the number of cases in Arizona is rising. And we need to be praying that despite the lack of wisdom on many people's part, when you see them just going through parties and all the rest of it, you're going, what's the deal? But I read an article today, and it was talking about the risk of catching the coronavirus. And I'm going somewhere with this, just bear with me. But it said that there are two factors in considering the likelihood that somebody would catch it. Number one is how intense is the presence of the virus. It's obviously different if you're in Home Depot or if you're in an ICU that is dealing with that. And then the second factor was, how long are you exposed? Apparently, if you're even in ICU and you're walking quickly through it, your exposure is less likely to be negative for you than if you camp there. So, I'm sure you're wondering, well, how does all of that fit into the Ten Commandments? And I don't know that it does fit into the verse that we're studying, but it does make me think that, we're told as Christian parents to train up a child in the way that they should go. So obviously the question is, would you send your child into a leper colony? And would you let them camp there? Well, why not? Well, number one, it's dangerous. And number two, you don't want to prolong the exposure. If we must be in contact with contagious diseases, then we need to keep the time to a minimum. And that led me to think, well, God does expect us to instill some of those values in our kids. God expects us as parents to help our children and to bring up our children to honor and obey Him. In fact, I believe that's the most important duty of a parent. It would be nice if you can bring up kids who are respectful. It'd be nice if you could bring up kids who were studious and took financial responsibility seriously, and when they had the opportunity, they were good parents themselves. But I would suggest to you that above the feeding and housing and rearing of our kids, we have an obligation to bring them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. I don't think we can assign that responsibility to a school or to someone else. I'd like to read you the commandments a little rephrased in Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 1 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right, and honor thy father and thy mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest live long on the earth." So this commandment is the commandment that's known as the commandment with promise, because if you do what God said, then there is a promise, and the promise is that it will be well with thee. And what does that mean? It means that you're going to do well now. So if you're honoring your parents, you're going to be honored. You're going to be doing well. And then the second part was, and thou mayest live long. So you're going to live longer than expected. So now it's kind of funny, because I'm talking to a group of people who, most of us, I'm sure our parents are not still around. But clearly as a group, I think we must have honored our parents, because we're still here, and there's a lot of us are, what shall we say? We're not going to see 60 or 70 or 75 again. Made me realize, it doesn't follow exactly, these kinds of bits of logic are not reversible. All cats are animals, but not all animals are cats. So everybody that honors the Lord, honors their parents, will, according to Scripture, live a long life, but not everybody that lives a long life will have honored their parents. So maybe there's some of us who didn't honor our parents in the way that we would wish. For me, I remember countless discussions and countless arguments and whatnot with my dad. I would give anything to have another day with my dad. We don't value our parents in the way that we should, likely, until they're gone. Many of you know that my mum died when I was 14. And just the other day, I received in an email a picture of my mum and my dad. My mum was there in a wheelchair, and I haven't seen a picture of her literally in 10 years. And it just, all the memories came flooding back, and I'm thinking, wow, I would love to be able to sit and talk with her. And she was a very gentle and special lady. So we're told to honor our parents. For us, most of us, that opportunity is gone. But it did make me think, well, what does it mean to honor? And I think, honor means to recognize and to value. Recognize them because of their importance and their significance to you. And recognize the authority that comes with being a parent. That was probably one of the things that my dad and I argued about. He wanted me to do X, and I was a young guy and thought I'd do Y. I've got countless stories. Sometimes I should tell you about crazy things that happened. But my dad was a special man. My dad was a preacher of the gospel, like his dad before him. And so, the question becomes, when we tell our kids, and when those of us who still have parents, what about them and what about what they did deserves our honor? Well, I hope that every parent, every child can look and say, thank you for the love and the care that you provided me growing up. I think lots of parents show that in different ways. There's some parents are not very touchy-feely but nevertheless they would lay their life down for their kids. Oftentimes, in order to see the kid have the best, then the parent goes without. I've told you that story before about the teacher that was talking to a little girl, and she was trying to get her to understand the elementary aspects of mathematics. And she said to the little girl, she said, imagine your mum has just baked a lemon meringue pie, and you're going to split it between you. So how much do you get? And the little girl said, well, I get half, and my mum's going to have the other half. And so the teacher, trying to extend the math here, says, well, what happens if your little brother comes in? How much do you get then? And the little girl said, a half. The teacher said, no, you're missing the point, because now there's 3 people. And the little girl says, oh, no, you don't know my mum. She wouldn't take away from me. She'd give her half of the pie to my brother. And that's mothers. That's what mothers do. So, hopefully we gave our kids a decent education. Hopefully we raised them in the fear and admonition of the Lord. That's number 1 on the list. Hopefully we provided protection for them. I don't know about you, but I've been watching the news here in Arizona of this terrible situation that seems to be going on with this mother who, I don't know, I can't even understand what's going on, except to say that apparently she was a party to or aware of the death of her kids. I can't even understand that, because that violates every single thing that I've ever understood about the love of a mother. But we live in a sick world, don't we? We live in a sick world. It says, incidentally, in that verse, it says, honor your father and your mother. It doesn't say honor your father and his mate. It doesn't say honor your mother and the live-in boyfriend. It says honor your father and mother. And wow, that would preach. And you think about the impact on where we're at today, and the fact that an enormous percentage of kids in today's society, over 20-some%, are growing up in a single-parent home, and that statistic is just a third of what it is if you're talking about a black home, the home of an African American. So I don't know how all of this is going to play out that's in the news. I do believe there's inequities in our society. I do believe that it's time for change. And I pray that the change produces something better. Sometimes we're so anxious for change. You remember back to the story I told you the other day of the children of Israel saying, we want a king, we want a king. So there was a change, but unfortunately the change wasn't for the positive. So I'm just praying and believing that through this period of change, and America is in a period of change. If you don't recognize that, then I pray that you will, because we're going to see change. I pray that the change will be God-directed, that you and I will have opportunity to speak into that change. Maybe not verbally, but we can speak spiritually. And we can pray and we can intercede. And I pray that the atmosphere and the environment will once again turn to a family environment where indeed kids can be raised in the fear and admonition of the Lord, but they can also be trained from a young age to honor their parents, honor their mom and their father and their mother. So there may be a young person watching me today. It's a little unlikely. You're probably out doing something. But if you're watching me, honor your mom and your dad. I don't know that any of us wouldn't like to go back and revisit them and to tell them, I said some things or I did some things. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way, but I suspect not. I suspect that we all have times when we'd like to go back and just express the love and appreciation that now we realize we had, even if yesterday we weren't very good at explaining it. So that's my thought for the day, the fifth commandment. And tomorrow we'll keep going. So that was my thought for the day. Sorry I'm a little late today. It's been a busy day, but tomorrow I'll try and get back on schedule. Sure love you all, praying for you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. God bless.